Josiah Magama Tongogara was born in 1938 in Zimbabwe, a district of colonial Rhodesia. His life began at the very heart of a system built on inequality, a society divided sharply along racial lines. From the very start, his life was tied to the system he would later dedicate himself to overthrowing. His family lived and worked on a farm owned by the parents of Ian Smith, the man who would become Rhodesia's last prime minister and the symbol of white minority resistance. This unique connection made Tongogara's childhood more than just another story of hardship. He grew up on the very soil of the family that represented the system he would one day fight against. Life in colonial Rhodesia was defined by limits. For Africans, opportunities were deliberately blocked, and education was one of the sharpest weapons used to enforce inequality. Tongogara attended an Anglican mission school, where he stood out as a promising student. But his education ended after primary school. The colonial government ensured that most Black children would never access secondary schooling. For Tongogara, this was not just a personal loss, it was a brutal awakening. The system wanted him, and millions like him, to remain uneducated, obedient, and powerless. This denial of education planted in him a determination that would never leave. He understood from a young age that the struggle for freedom was not abstract. It was personal. It was about dignity, opportunity, and the right to decide one's own future. With no path forward in Rhodesia, he left in 1960 for northern Rhodesia, today's Zambia. There he found work as a bookkeeper. On the surface, it was ordinary, routine work, counting numbers in ledgers. But beneath this simplicity, a transformation was underway. Living outside Rhodesia gave him the chance to reflect and to compare. He saw that other African nations were moving toward independence. He witnessed the energy of nationalism spreading across the continent, and he realized that Rhodesia's colonial system was not eternal. The injustice he had lived as a child, the humiliation of being denied an education, and the daily reminder of white supremacy became the fuel for his convictions. By the time the 1960s advanced, he had become a man with a mission, a man preparing, consciously or not, for a role that would place him at the very center of Zimbabwe's liberation struggle. Before we continue, if you're enjoying this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. Your support helps bring more African history to light. After leaving Rhodesia, Tongogara knew that change could only come through armed struggle. In the early 1960s, he became one of the first young nationalists to receive formal military training abroad. He trained in countries such as China, the Soviet Union, and Egypt, where he learned modern guerrilla tactics, political organization, and the discipline of revolutionary warfare. These experiences transformed him from a determined young man into a professional soldier with a clear mission. When the Zimbabwe African National Union, ZANU, formed its armed wing, the Zimbabwe African National Liberation Army, ZANLA, Tongogara quickly rose through the ranks. By the late 1960s, he was appointed commander of ZANLA, a position that gave him enormous responsibility. He was young, but his ability to inspire confidence made him stand out. Fighters respected him not only as a strategist, but also as a man who shared their hardships in the field. One of Tongogara's most important achievements was building a strong alliance with Frelimo in neighboring Mozambique. After Mozambique won its independence from Portugal in 1975, Frelimo allowed ZANLA to operate freely from Mozambican territory. This partnership gave the guerrillas safe bases, supply lines, and the chance to intensify operations inside Rhodesia. Tongogara worked closely with Frelimo commanders, understanding that the liberation struggles of Southern Africa were deeply connected. This regional cooperation made the Rhodesian regime's position weaker and isolated. Tongogara believed the Liberation War was not only about defeating the Rhodesian army, but also about shaping the character of the future nation. He insisted on discipline among guerrilla fighters, punishing those who abused villagers or misused power. For him, the support of the rural population was the backbone of the struggle. Without the people, there was no revolution. His leadership style combined toughness with vision. On the battlefield, he coordinated daring operations that stretched the Rhodesian forces thin. Politically, he pushed for unity within the nationalist movement, even when ZANU faced bitter rivalries with ZAPU and internal disputes. Tongogara's ideology was rooted in African self-determination. He admired Marxist principles of collective struggle, but was above all pragmatic. His focus was to free Zimbabwe from white minority rule, and he understood that victory required both military pressure and political negotiation. This pragmatism became especially clear during the Lancaster House negotiations in 1979. Many guerrilla leaders distrusted the talks, fearing that compromise would betray years of sacrifice. But Tongogara acted as a moderating voice. He reminded his comrades that independence was the ultimate goal, not endless war. His presence in London helped ease tensions within the delegation and reassured the international community that ZANU was committed to a genuine peace process. Throughout the 1970s, Tongogara became a symbol of resistance. His name was feared by Rhodesian authorities and celebrated in African liberation movements across the continent. He was not just a soldier, he was a strategist, a negotiator, and a leader who gave direction to thousands of young men and women willing to die for freedom. As Zimbabwe's independence finally came into sight, Tongogara was at the peak of his influence. He had guided ZANLA through years of armed struggle. He had played a vital role in securing the Lancaster House Agreement, and many saw him as a natural leader for the new Zimbabwe. But then, just days after the signing of that historic deal, tragedy struck. On December 26, 1979, Josiah Tongogara was killed in a car accident in Mozambique. Official reports stated that his vehicle collided with another truck while he was traveling from Maputo back to Zimbabwe. The news shocked not only his comrades, but also the entire liberation movement. The timing was painfully suspicious. Independence was just months away, and Tongogara was expected to play a key role in shaping the new government. From the very beginning, many Zimbabweans doubted the official version. There were several reasons why his death was considered suspicious. First, Tongogara had just returned from London, where he was seen as a pragmatic and moderating figure. He was willing to compromise, to accept multi-party elections, and to work with rivals for the sake of peace. Not everyone inside ZANU shared this vision. Some hardliners feared his influence would weaken their own positions. Second, survivors of the crash later gave conflicting testimonies, and questions were raised about whether the accident was really accidental. Some whispered about assassination, carried out either by Rhodesian intelligence or by rivals within his own movement. Third, Tongogara's growing popularity made him a possible political rival to Robert Mugabe. Although Mugabe was the leader of ZANU, many guerrilla fighters and international observers saw Tongogara as the man most capable of uniting the country after independence. His death removed one of the few figures who could have balanced Mugabe's rise to power. Because of these circumstances, Tongogara's death has remained shrouded in mystery. Officially, it was a tragic road accident, but in the minds of many Zimbabweans, it was an assassination, an intentional act to silence a leader who might have changed the course of the nation. Despite his sudden death, Tongogara's legacy has endured. He is remembered as a commander who combined courage with humility, discipline with vision. Fighters who served under him spoke of a man who demanded respect, but also treated his comrades as equals. Villagers remembered a leader who insisted that guerrillas protect the people rather than exploit them. His role in forging the alliance with Frelimo, in keeping discipline within ZANLA, and in guiding the liberation war to the negotiating table cemented his place as one of the giants of Zimbabwe's independence struggle. Today, his name is immortalized in roads, schools, and military barracks across Zimbabwe. Every year, his memory is invoked as a symbol of sacrifice and patriotism. For many, Josiah Magama Tongogara represents the path Zimbabwe might have taken, a path of unity, moderation, and principled leadership. More than 4 decades later, the questions surrounding his death still linger. But what is beyond question is the impact of his life. From a boy growing up under colonial oppression, to the commander of a liberation army, to a key negotiator at Lancaster House, Tongogara's journey was extraordinary. He did not live to see the flag of an independent Zimbabwe raised in 1980, but his struggle made that moment possible. And for millions, his legacy lives on as one of the true fathers of the nation.